Hello entrepreneurs, welcome to another episode of Entrepreneur Fundamentals. My name is Robert Bitto. Today we're going to talk a little bit about bad publicity. Is there such a thing? Well, I'll give you a short answer to that. No, there is no such thing as bad publicity. That's kind of a cliche, but it is true. And another cliche to go along with this is good or bad, just as long as they are talking. And there have been people, celebrities, who've made their whole livelihood over being notorious or scandalous and so on. I'm not advocating that you go out there and become notorious or scandalous, but if bad publicity does come your way, don't worry about it. Because if somebody boycotts you or dislikes you, there are going to be other people whose curiosity will be piqued by what they've heard or what they've seen about you in the press or wherever they've seen it, online, what have you. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it isn't a double-edged sword because I think from what I've experienced and what I've seen with other businesses, that bad publicity usually is a positive instead of a negative. Now, of course, my videos would not be complete without an anecdote from real life. When I had store number 2, it was 2002 or 2003, and I was selling tons and tons of Day of the Dead merchandise. Happy skeletons, sugar skull molds, papel picado, all of the different altar supplies that you need to build a Mexican altar or ofrenda for the holiday. I had everything. And I was one of the only stores in Phoenix where you could go and find such an amazing selection of stuff. It was my forte. Still is online, but back then I had the store, and my store garnered a lot of attention from reporters and TV people and stuff like that, because a lot of them who are looking for a story, they're bored, they want something interesting. So a lot of them came to me for various stories. Well, one TV person came and interviewed me about Day of the Dead, and it was a pretty lengthy interview, and I know things get cut down to 1 or 2 minutes for the segment for the news or whatever program it is. So, the camera was on, my mic was hooked up, the young, beautiful woman interviewer was asking me questions, and I was, just going with it and everything. And they told me when the segment would be aired, and I couldn't be home for that. I was still at my store. So I programmed my VCR. That just shows you how long ago it was, with a tape and everything. I programmed my VCR to tape the segment. When I got home, I pressed the rewind button, heard the zzz, and then I pressed the play button. And they went to the town of Guadalupe, a little suburb or enclave of Phoenix that's mostly Hispanic, and it's mostly low income. And they went to the house of a woman who had set up her Day of the Dead ofrenda in the traditional way in her house on, this table with candles and pictures of her loved ones and everything. And the reporter asked the woman, "What do you think about people making money off of Day of the Dead? What do you think of other cultures and people from other cultures taking the holiday and celebrating it and commercializing it?" And she went off into this whole thing about respect, and then they cut to me. And I said like this, "My sales are through the roof." And it made me into this greedy industrialist or something who was making a buck off of Day of the Dead and, expropriating a culture. Back then it wasn't a big thing. Now, that's a big thing by certain people of a certain political persuasion or leaning. cultural misappropriation or cultural appropriation or whatever the heck it is. Newsflash, culture is shared. Yes, a black person, a white person, an Asian person can celebrate Day of the Dead. You know, it's for everybody. But anyway, so they cut to me, and all I'm talking about is money. And in the 20-minute interview that I had with the reporter, I talked a lot more about just sales. But it went from this woman who, you know, it made her look like she was struggling to make ends meet, and she, you know, spent all this money putting together this altar, and then it cut to me, this, you know, big bad business owner. And my first reaction was not this swelling of rage or anything. I laughed. I thought it was funny because I had been around long enough at that point to know that it wasn't going to do damage to my business. And I knew that the reporter was trying to make something a little bit sensational or a little bit controversial, you know, for ratings or whatever, for interest in her program. So I didn't mind. I thought it was funny. I still think it's funny. And I don't have a VCR anymore, so I can't watch that segment again if I wanted to. But what was the result of that? Were there picketers outside my store saying, down with greed, down with cultural misappropriation or cultural appropriation? I don't even know what it is. No. People were curious. I had people coming in saying that they saw that segment and they had never even known that my store was there. So it gave me free exposure. I didn't have to pay for that. And I didn't see any negative from it at all. So what could have been bad publicity was a good thing. And I've seen it with other businesses too. So it can't go the other way, but I would say not necessarily. I would say in most cases, there is no such thing as bad publicity. Good or bad, as long as they're talking. That's all I have to say on this subject. Thank you for your attention. Oh, and by the way, if you want to do a thumbs down on this video, YouTube still counts that as engagement. So there, that adds to what I'm saying too. Thanks again, and remember to always work hard, and may all of your entrepreneurial dreams come true.